Willie, good morning. Thank you very much indeed for the time. Willie, for the last few years, this report has been dominated by the Americans. They've led the financial league tables since, I think, probably COVID. Yet this year, it's the Europeans that have taken over. And next year, it looks like it's going to be the same story. Willie, what's changed?
Yeah, good morning, Guy. I think a couple of things. Obviously, growth in the US, in North America, has been relatively low compared to other parts of the world. Europe continues to do well. I think a weakening US dollar obviously benefits airlines who are not US dollar denominated. 50% of an airline's cost base is typically in the US dollar. So if you see a weakening dollar, it typically would benefit airlines in Europe. And, generally the demand for aviation in Europe is stronger than the US. So we see Europe in absolute terms overtaking the US. Still in margin terms, both are doing pretty well. And the airline industry looking at another good year in 2026.
Let's stay in the United States for a moment. The Federal Reserve is meeting in Washington, D.C. today. The Trump administration would like to see rates coming sharply lower, Willie. Let's talk about cost of capital. Say the Fed cut rates aggressively in 2026. How significant an impact would that have on the outlook for U.S. airlines?
I don't think it'd have a major impact. Obviously, the debt levels in all airlines increased during the COVID crisis, coming out of the COVID crisis. I think most airlines have done well to strengthen their balance sheets. But, obviously the impact that it would have on consumer would clearly be beneficial. And I think one of the things we are seeing in the US is the weakening consumer demand as a result of the cost of living issues that have been highlighted there. So, it would have to have a benefit for the industry. I think it would accelerate some growth. But in reality, though, capacity is being constrained by other issues in the US.
Let's come on to those capacity issues in just a second, but just stay with the consumer for a moment. You've got a K-shaped recovery in America. The upper end of the income bracket is doing very, very well. The stock market is certainly helping, as a result of which they've been taking lots of trips abroad. The strong dollar has helped out with that. You referenced the fact that the dollar's beginning to weaken now. Do you think that kind of phase of Americans travelling abroad is going to peter out from here? We've seen certainly loads of them in Europe over the last few years. Is that about to change?
I don't think it is going to change quickly. And you're absolutely right. You look anywhere in Europe now, there's quite a lot of US travelers, and I think they've come to appreciate the value on offer in Europe. So the weakening dollar may discourage some people, but quite genuinely, if you look at, here I am in Geneva, the ski market we're seeing being really dominated by US travelers because the cost of vacationing in Europe is significantly lower than doing so in the US.
You mentioned a moment ago some of the capacity constraints that have been hitting the industry. Boeing and Airbus, obviously, are names that instantly spring to mind, but the engine manufacturers as well. What's been happening at Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney, and General Electric to a certain extent, but less so, have been impacting this industry. Do you think these are businesses that command huge margins, Willie? And I'm just wondering whether or not you think the airline industry is getting the wrong end of the stick on this one, and whether things are going to improve from here.
Well, I couldn't put it better myself, Guy. You look at GE commercial engines margins for the first 9 months of this year, 27.6% at an operating level. The airline industry looking at less than 7%. So there's a big disconnect between suppliers and the people doing all the work. And that just is not sustainable. So, we're going to have to look more detailed at this because we've seen these margins increase in terms of GE, while, as I say, airline margins are pretty much stagnant. Net margins for us is about 3.9% this year, 3.9%.
Do you see some of the supply chain issues that have been hitting this industry over the last few years, just the availability of aircraft? Do you think that's going to improve in 2026?
No, I don't really see any significant improvement. We're still seeing constrained delivery issues there. We've estimated that the cost of the supply chain disruption for the industry this year has been $11 billion as a result of the delayed delivery of new aircraft, increasing fuel burn, increasing maintenance costs. So that will continue into 2026 and probably 2027 as well.
Willie, the Trump administration has just rolled back some of the Biden-era auto fuel regulations for the car industry. Do you think that would be a good idea for the aviation industry as well? Do you think regulation on fuel is too tight? Do you think both Europe and the United States should re-examine that? And if so, how?
Yeah, mandating the use of sustainable aviation fuel, I believe, is wrong. What we need to do is to continue to encourage production. We've got a big disconnect between the levels of sustainable fuel being produced for the airline industry and the mandates that are in place. And all it's leading to is fuel suppliers making even greater profits on the back of the airline industry. In Europe, what we see happening is they're adding to the price of conventional jet to cover what they call compliance fees. In other words, the penalties that they may face if they don't meet the mandates that they're required to meet. So I think regulators do need to look at this again. You know, the industry remains committed to using sustainable fuel as the key element to reduce our environmental impact, but we're just not seeing supply being made available at the levels that we require.
Willie, put it all together. Fares, what are they going to do next year? Is it going to be more expensive to fly or cheaper to fly in 2026?
No, we think yields will actually be flat in 26 versus 25. Demand will continue to be relatively strong, about 4.9% up on this year. That's slightly less than we've seen before, but still reasonably healthy.
OK, final quick question. Asia, that's the bright spot. That's where the growth is coming through. But we've started to see problems. We've seen what's been happening in India over the last few days. Do you think we can expect turbulence as these Asian airlines grow as quickly as they do? Do you think what is happening in India, the issues that have happened with Indigo, do you think we can see those replicated elsewhere? Are these guys growing too quickly?
No, I don't think they're growing too quickly. But what we did see was, a change in the regulatory environment, which imposed additional restrictions on how they operate. And I think that issue, has caused a shock, particularly in the low-cost segment, which is much more impacted by some of the regulatory changes that has happened. So I think things will stabilise, Guy. I think growth is going to continue to be particularly strong in that region as they see the value of aviation driving their economies.
Willie Walsh, the Director General of IATA in Geneva. Sir, thank you very much indeed.